All right, hey everybody, welcome back. We are back again, Austin and I, with the Wealth Building Mastermind Podcast. What are we going to talk about today, Austin?
You're the queen of quarterbacking this, so whatever you want to talk about, but everything small business, everything wealth building, all that fun stuff. We'll talk about our event, well, technically tomorrow, but same place, same time, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So if we are fast forwarding and we're actually tomorrow already, we want you guys to come out to our Wealth Building Mastermind tonight at the Lone Star Lounge. I don't know why I can never remember the lounge word.
You and me both. We butcher it every time, but it's the same place every month.
I come out, yeah. So we'll be at Lone Star Lounge in Creekside. I know that we have lots of viewers out there or group members out there that are not local to New Braunfels. So we try to create a forum and a space that you guys can still have the conversations, still receive a lot of the same mastermind abilities just by doing this today. So we're going to talk a lot today about the things that we're going to be talking about in our Wealth Building Mastermind event coming up at 6 o'clock today. And we have a sponsor as well, and she's a member from our group. Miss Allison will be sponsoring us for tomorrow evening's event, or tonight evening's event, I guess, if I'm fast forwarding.
There we go. Yeah, she was on the podcast on the last one we dropped, and she was amazing, and she's got a magazine deal going on, and yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun like always. Like, just come out, have a good time, have some drinks. Yeah. And
it's a free event, and you don't have to be any level of investor or wealth builder to be part of it.
I don't think you can say that as enough times. It's a free event. Like there's nothing holding you back to going.
It's just a free event with higher level conversation. Like you said in the podcast before, it's just a way for you to be more intentional about the people that you're spending time with.
Yeah, and I think for us, because I know me personally, I do whatever I can in my power not to drink alcohol. So like if I'm going to drink alcohol, it's going to be doing something productive, like kind of like networking with other people. Yeah. So I do drink when I'm there, but I always try not to.
Right.
But I think it's just like, okay, it's an excuse to drink alcohol because you know what? I'm also networking, working with other cool people. And it's like constructive drinking, but it's fun at the same time.
Right.
Does that make sense?
But you also don't have to drink alcohol.
Yeah, you don't have to drink alcohol. Either. That's my personal thing. But I have a couple beers while I'm there. And it's always a good time. So.
All right. Well, we're going to jump in today. Today's mastermind or today's session is just Austin and I, but I want to remind you guys that if you come to the event and you would like to be a guest on our podcast, we actually have space every other podcast for you to come on and talk with us, share the things that you talked about or learned about in the last mastermind meeting. And we meet every month, every second Tuesday of the month. So that's coming up tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to know, we had some questions that we've been posting on the group that can help just kind of foster conversation and see what everybody else is doing out there in the world. And one of the questions I've been wanting to ask, and I'll ask Austin first, since he is our, admin and guru creator, co-creator. Yeah, there he is. What is a book that you have read or are reading currently, and why is it constructive or helpful? We're always wondering, like, book titles.
Sure. So me personally, I do whatever I can to read 10 pages every single day. And I think out of my daily habits and disciplines, like, the reading is my least favorite thing. I absolutely hate it. But the thing about it is I started this habit like a little over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then when I started adding up the math, I'm reading like almost a book a month, which I would never read. And I'm also the kind of person, when I read, it's like, yeah, I'll probably read that same paragraph maybe 3 times because my ADD is so bad that it'll jump somewhere else. But, the book that I'm currently reading is Buy Back Your Time. And basically the concept of it is kind of to do whatever you can to get out of your business and hire people to do the tasks that you necessarily don't like doing so that you can go focus on filling up your cup with whatever actually moves the needle in your business and what actually makes you more money. And I think that's something that is very important to me, because I'm at a phase in my business where I do wear all the hats for the most part, and I have an assistant that helps me, but I'm just learning to kind of delegate because we're not a very big business. So I don't have 20 people working for me or anything like that. But I am trying to get to that point, and this book kind of just explains basically how you can get to that point, and I'm enjoying it so far. When I posted it online and when I posted it in the mastermind group, the feedback that I got was like, oh yeah, I've read that. That's a really good book. So it's just been a lot of good feedback. I mean, what about you? Are you reading anything interesting these days?
No, it's funny that we are. It's not funny actually at all. We're the magnetism comes from the fact that we're like literally in the same place at the same time as far as our business development. Obviously, I've been doing real estate for 9 years, but I was talking with my business coach earlier today. I've rebranded a lot in the last 3 to 4 years, maybe more, and I've gone from an individual state to a team state to a bigger team to co-partners to independent again. And each time that you go through these different branding processes, or you have a team or not a team, and you're an individual or a larger entity, there's so many different pieces and elements to it all that you kind of have to start from scratch every single time. And that's where I'm at right now. Exactly. Case in point, I am doing all of the things because I came from a large team that had all of these systems and processes put in place, and jumped out and said, I can do that.
Sure.
Oh, wow, this is really hard. It's really tough.
I think if like it sounds fun, but if you don't realize that you have to get out of your own way, you're just going to create like a second job for yourself. Like not a second job, like you're going to build a business that becomes a job. And that's like the whole point of why you got into it, is not to build a job for yourself. And it's a job that also like you don't really get to go home from.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is like the hard part, because you think in your mind, you're like, well, nobody can do it as good as me. And it's just it's that hurdle that you have to get over, and you have to hire somebody to do things, and they more than likely can do them better than you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually the book that I'm reading right now is Who Not How. And it's not a new book by any stretch of the imagination. They have a whole coaching program surrounding this entire book, and it's one of those where like oh, I crawled out from underneath the rock. This looks like a good book. And the concept behind the book is exactly related to what you were just saying. It's getting out of your own way and realizing that you aren't good at everything, that you're actually probably good at one thing, and that's the one thing that you went into business for. But in order to run a business, you have to do all the other things too.
And that's the thing that probably fills up your cup the most. And then maybe, obviously, it's probably not a $10 task. It's probably something that makes you more money. And and I've heard of that book. It's been on my list for a while. I have not read it, but I just based off the title, I feel like I kind of understand what the concept is. Who, not how.
Right.
Don't figure out how you're going to do it. Am I right? Is
Correct.
that kind of what it's explaining?
That's
like
correct.
Who can do it, so I don't have to do it, and I can focus on building the brand that I'm out to build.
Right. And so that person can lean into the space that is their area of expertise, and they can do it normally better, faster, and more efficiently, because that's their lane.
Sure.
But it's a neat concept to think about on a grander scheme, but then you start thinking about implementing it, right? And that's what the book really dives into, is not just looking at understanding the concept that you should assemble a team or a group or a tribe or whoever to work with, but it's actually going out there and doing it. And then once you do it, once you have the who's, well, now you have to get very clear on your vision and very clear about what it is that you need to do and what you want to do, because otherwise your who's aren't going to know what to do and where to go. They're not just good at their trade. I mean, they're good at their trade, but they don't know what you want. They don't know what your way is the way that it's supposed to be. And that's where I think I've been roadblocked almost every time, is I have the ability to attract the who's, but then once they get there, they look at me and they're like, okay, now what? I'm like, well, I don't know. You just go do it. You just do it.
So you think it's like more of like an area of improvement for you is potentially, and I think it's for a lot of us is maybe building out like systems and
Yes.
processes for that person that comes on. They're like, yeah, I'm really good at this skill set, but like, I don't know how you want me to do it.
Correct.
So that's where you kind of need to come in, right? Like
Correct.
and build that out. Or what I've been doing with my assistant actually is like the real lazy way to do it. And what I do is I kind of just throw them in the fire. I'm like, hey, I need you to do this. And I understand that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And when you do it, build out an SOP of a system.
Yes.
And, you know,
Standard operating.
yeah, exactly. Do that and build out how you did it. And you're going to make mistakes. And I'm cool with it. I'll deal with the punches that come from that.
Right.
And they've been building those SOPs out for me. And I'm just like, hey, change this, change this, change this. And I feel like also that's a great way for people to learn also is doing it by themselves. Because if you create like a manual of like how to do everything, I feel like there'll be more robots.
Correct.
Like they'll just look at it and be like, rule 1, rule 2. But if you're like, hey, you do it, you figure it out. And then as you go, edit it and build out the system in place for yourself, then they'll know like if a curveball comes in place, they know how to do those things. So to answer your question, I feel like it's a little bit of both. They need to have some kind of structure, but they need to have some kind of freedom and responsibility to where like you can pull out and be like, hey, you do this, and I have to not be such a controlling business owner.
Right.
Because I think one of the things that we all struggle as business owners is we think that we need to do it our way, and our way is the best way. And I think if we just let, somebody else take the reins and go away, they'll figure it out. As long as they're a good employee and you vetted them and all that good stuff.
Right. I think and the book talks about this a lot too, is establishing boundaries enough that they know what the goal needs to be, and they know what the ending product needs to look like. If there are systems and processes that you have established along the way that are checkpoints, they need to be being done. But whether I go here to come here or go here to come here, as long as I come here,
you get the same result.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the biggest part that's the hardest part of looking at who instead of how, is that you have to understand that who's are not robots. How is.
Yeah.
How's a robot? How's a system and a procedure that you do, and it never changes. And you can do that to some extent with your who's, but it's only if you have a very clear vision and a very clear process and a very clear outcome of what needs to happen. And like that for me, I'm not even saying these things as like, this is already what I do. I know this is what I need to do, but I even myself have not sat down to do that because I think I'm just now starting to come to a point in my career where I'm like, oh, I do have a process for working with people. I do have a process that really works. It really works. But I've never taken the time to just own that as this is my brand. This is sellable, That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I think some people never figure it out, and they're like they're that exhausted entrepreneur that's just like they've just run themselves ragged running their own business, and they just never figure out how to delegate and do those kind of things. So I think there's power in letting go of control.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's power in just aligning yourself with other people that have a collective effort and a collective culture towards building it bigger. I look back to Elevate Networking Alliance, the networking group that I'm a president of, and we are 4 years in the making at this point, almost 5. And I look back to some of our very first meetings, and we were all just getting together because we collectively wanted to do something good for the community. We collectively wanted, we wanted togetherness. It was in March of 2020, so we were estranged and holed up in behind closed doors and couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. And so we found connectedness in that moment. But I realized shortly after that if I didn't have a purpose for what we were meeting for, then it was all just going to dissolve. It was all going to go away. And I had to grow that bigger.
So talk about like, how have you found with your mastermind group, how have you found answers? Have you ever found answers to certain problems that you would have never, you would have been able to do it by yourself, but maybe there was somebody in a group where you're like, hey, so-and-so is good at this. Like, is there like always people that you can lean on in that situation?
Well, I think, I say this all the time. I think that people truly want to help other people. They really do. They just don't know. They don't know how, right? I could see that you're stressed, or I could see that you've had a bad day, and I could say something like, hey, are you doing okay? Is there anything I can help you with? And what is our automatic answer going to be?
I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm good. It's good. I'm totally fine. I could really use some lunch, but you know what? It's okay. I'll take care of it. And that's just our natural reaction, is just to be like, you know what? No, it's okay. Because if you have to come in here and I have to explain it to you, I could have already just done it in the time it took me to explain it to you. But what happens is when we take the time to sit and explain it to them, now they go and do it each time, month after month after month. It was a huge realization for me when we decided to create a board for E&A. And I'm like, a board? I have 30 people in my group. Why do I need a board of directors for a networking group? But it was something as simple as having volunteers, they're all women, but women within the group, reaching out and saying, I want to be more involved. I want to help. I'm seeing that you're struggling. I'm seeing that it's tough for you to keep your head above water. So what can we do to help? And at first I didn't even know how to break it down. I didn't even know what I needed help with. And so I just started offloading the tasks that I knew I wasn't an expert at. Taking attendance. I don't need to take attendance for 30 people every 2 weeks.
Right.
Like treasurer, like collecting dues. I don't need to do all of that, right? I don't need to be the one. I'm not the only one that can remember people's birthday on the Facebook group.
Right, but maybe and I have no idea, but maybe there's a lady in there that's an accountant or something, and she's like, I'll do that.
I'll do the treasury. So there's all these smaller things that I was trying to consistently remember to do on a regular basis, and got completely, I just drowned after a while. After there became so many members and activity started increasing, I realized, okay, I have to spread this out. And now it's being done at a highly effective level, to the point where I don't even know where our attendance levels are right now, but I do know I do know what I want to talk about, and I do know our guest speakers, and I get to focus on the higher level things.
I think that's always the end goal. I think that's the end goal with like business in general too. Like that's the summary of how your networking group works, but that's the summary of exactly where I'm trying to go with my business. Like I'm wearing a lot of hats, and I'm trying to get rid of these hats, and I want to be, at this point where it's like, yes, I want to be the face and I want to grow my business, but I also don't want to do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. So that's why I think both of the books that we're reading makes so much sense, because it's kind of shifting our mindset to actually building a business and working on our business, not in the business.
Correct.
There you go. You get what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's okay.
I've heard it so many times.
I messed up our quote last time, so.
Okay, well, it's like a new episode tradition to where it's like we'll just butcher
We're just
one
going to
quote.
butcher
Just
every
butcher it.
quote
it's
from
good.
every smart human that came before us.
All good.
So we're going to talk for a little bit about the topic that we're getting into in the mastermind later on tonight. And that topic is on scaling your business. So we talk about building wealth often, and there's so many different ways to build wealth. And we actually did a poll last week on our Facebook group in terms of what were some things that you guys out there want to see or want to hear about or want to talk about. We gave a few different options in there, allowed you to share out as well. And one of the things I think that, I don't know if you were surprised or not, but I was, is some of our topics, they're all related to wealth building, but some of our topics were long-term investments and short-term rentals. And I think there was like
zeros
on those two.
Maybe one or two.
It's like our area of expertise.
Like, I'm just going to vote for short-term rentals just to see if people will, But
nobody wants to hear real estate.
What was the main
hear
one?
You.
I feel like there was one leading one, and I can't remember what it was. But once you say it, do you remember?
No, I have to look back at we'll look back at the group.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that we saw very quickly is that there are a lot of small business owners within this group, especially within New Braunfels. I mean, it's a great, wonderful place to start a business because we have booming residential growth. We have booming commercial growth. We're just busting at the seams to the extent that we probably won't have water here in the next few years. But, that's a different podcast. But it's a great place for small businesses to get started and to grow. And there's great networking groups here in town and different opportunities to help grow that business. as you and I both know, if you're consistently working in the business and you're just embedded in all of the tasks that it takes for a business to go, you're never going to grow. You're going to stay stuck.
And you're going to build a life that you don't want, because
Correct.
you're just going to be answering to clients at 10 o'clock at night when they text you. And it's like, I'm doing that now, but it's like, that's not the projected future. Exactly. Yeah. So exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And so I feel like for me in the world of real estate, the first 2 years are kind of like that. You just answer every call, go to every showing, do all the things, right? You
let's be fair though.
Muddy.
You have to do that in the beginning phases.
Yes.
Like there's no other way around it. You can't just start a business and be like, hire everybody. No, it's like, I have to get punched in the face on all these things over and over again.
If you want to be a true entrepreneur, you got to
I feel like it because like, even if you started like a plumbing company, like who's going to call you? Like you got to be a plumber first. Like, I don't know. Like you just, you got to do it. But I agree with you. At least, I don't know what the exact time frame is, but at least when you're first started, you got to. Plus, you've got to do it all yourself, because if you can't do it yourself, how are you going to teach people to do it?
Right.
Or something like that.
Right. Or you might as well just go work for someone else, or purchase someone else's franchise and have all of their systems and processes. But then at that point, then are you really entrepreneuring at that point anymore?
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
And I think one thing to live by is like, you can't tell somebody to do something that you haven't done yourself. Mm-hmm. So like, who's going to respect you as a business owner if you're like doing a task and you're like, the owner doesn't even know how to do it. So I feel like in all those beginning stages, you have to figure out how to do all those little things.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were on
totally fine.
ADD kicked in and interrupted your flow there. So I'll zip it. My bad.
We're gonna come back to the flow.
Okay, cool. My bad.
Okay, so when we're at that stage in your business where you've been in business long enough to know this is not sustainable, right? It's kind of like that point in 75 Hard. We were like day 52 and you just hate the world because everyone else is in your way. But you do realize that like the end is in sight, but you have to, like, it's not sustainable. That whole, neither is running your whole business that way. But when do you know that it's time to scale? Like, when do you know it's time to take that step towards making your business bigger?
I feel like it's just as soon as you get the irk in you that you're like, I feel like I need to do this, or I need to hire this. Don't kick that can down the road. Hire it out. Like if your bookkeeping has been stacked up for like two months or something like that, it's like, well, I'll probably just next Sunday, I'll just sit down on Sunday. I'll do all my bookkeeping. No, it's probably like, no, right now, and do it now, and hire. One thing I've heard that's really good from a mentor of mine is hire for where you're going. Don't hire for right now. So if you know you're going this way anyways, like do it. I guess the short answer to your question is like, do it now.
Scale as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and just get that stuff off your plate, because it's just going to pile up, and it's just going to make you, a messy business owner.
Yeah. Well, I actually have some key indicators that can help you determine if it's time to scale your business.
Let's go.
All right. So the first key indicator of when you know it's time, okay, what the product that I have is not just unique to me, or it's not just something that is just for one client or for one avatar. If I'm starting to see that the product that I have is unique enough that the demand is increasing, right? So if you're I'm just going to use my friend Courtney, right? Courtney Dallimore, shout out to you, Betty Lou Coffee. She is a wonderful woman and a wonderful mom and a wonderful business owner, and is already scaling her business within the first year of opening. So I think coming up in October is her 1-year anniversary to Betty Lou's Coffee. Betty Lou's was never a coffee brand that's ever existed before. She opened it up. It's her grandmother's name, and she opened up a little coffee truck on Landis Street here in town. And so within a few months, she was already seeing just a huge demand. People just lined up, stacked up. That's amazing. Yeah, but just coming out there to visit her and see her coffee. Before she knew it, she's, I think it was Maya Say came out and did a feature. She's been on. She's done amazing in such a short amount of time with having no marketing background. She was a NICU nurse prior to doing this, but before becoming my assistant in real estate. And then, but now she's already opening up her second location. And she's realizing, I think that, I think the biggest key indicator was, this past Saturday, they went to check on the truck, and there were people in line down Landis Street waiting to find a way to turn in and to get in to the coffee. If that is your business, it's probably time to scale.
Yeah, or hire somebody. I don't know what her team looks like, but
yeah,
if you're already,
she's got 4 employees right
okay,
now.
there you go.
Yeah. So when you're
That's
seeing
very impressive. Like to get that kind of momentum when you first start a business. So shout out to her. That's awesome.
Yeah. So when you're seeing a consistent demand, so it doesn't necessarily have to do with it's not seasonal, and it's not, oh, you're only running promotions and people are coming out. When you're seeing that there's consistency with the need, I think that's one of your key indicators that it's time to scale.
Yeah, well, I'm just more curious, like, what is she doing so well? Because I don't know much about coffee. I just make coffee at the house, but like, I feel like you could go anywhere to get coffee, but obviously she's doing something different. She's doing something right. Maybe it's her coffee's great. Obviously, that's probably it. Exactly, that's got to be it. Her branding's got to be good. She's got to also be in a good location. So it's like, I feel like, kudos to her, because it's already like a competitive food and beverage industry to me in general is already so difficult. Right. So like, that's so cool to hear.
Right? It just goes to show that it's not necessarily whether the market is saturated or not, right? If you have a product, a good product, a consistent product, that people are going to utilize it, right? So the next thing that you guys need to think about if you're ready to scale your business is obviously when you start opening up brick and mortars, or you start opening up new locations, you bring on more personnel, more people onto your team, it's going to cost more money. Right. And so the second key indicator on whether or not it's time to scale meaning like getting bigger or franchising or selling your products in a different way, you need to have a strong cash flow. So there's no sense in going into serious debt to try to just pursue or push a dream about having a brick and mortar if your business demand is not reflective of that product.
Yeah, I can't speak on that specifically because our company doesn't have any debt, but like that sounds stressful to me. Like borrowing the money to, and I can't speak on that, but to me it sounds stressful. It's like if you have the money to be able to scale and get the second unit, I guess you could take on investors and borrow the money, but to me it's more of like it would be awesome just to own out, a business that's absolutely debt free. So. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think just having a strong, healthy cash flow is going to help for sure in getting even those initial costs up front. So whether it's more inventory or more furniture or more personnel or whatever the case is. So people need to want your product. People need to pay for your product so that you have some money. and then after that, the next step comes into creating a solid team, right? Creating the people like Austin and I were talking about earlier. When you can create a good team for the needs of the business, then your business can really start to scale and grow. I think about did you ever used to watch Lucy? I Love Lucy a long time ago? No? Oh my gosh, I'm totally aging myself right now. Okay.
But I can relate to the concepts of the show.
There was an episode where Lucille Ball and her friend were working at a chocolate factory. It's a very famous scene. So even if you didn't watch I Love Lucy,
YouTube it after this.
Seen it at some point.
I'm gonna hit up YouTube after this. Don't worry, I won't leave you hanging. I'll check it out.
And they are candy operators that are on this conveyor belt, and the candy keeps coming out, and they're supposed to take it and wrap it and go. Take it and wrap it and go. Take it and wrap it and go. And it's a simple concept of just saying I stay in my lane, I do what I do, I get really good at it, and when we are all doing that together, we get real efficient. Well, they start messing up and they stop doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then things all start going everywhere, and they're popping candy in their mouth and stuffing it down their shirt, and they're just trying to get through the whole thing, and it's a silly little satire on a concept that just basically says you don't have to be all of the people on that conveyor belt line. You can be this one that says, I do this and I'm going to get real good at it, and then I move it forward. It's not